Hey everyone, it's Drew, back with you all for our season finale.
And me, Andrea, joining you one last time this season.
It's kind of sad to see the season end, you know?
I know, right? It
Uh,
really does feel like saying goodbye to a good friend.
it does, especially
Well,
to our pal Andro behind the scenes,
oh,
man.
yeah,
Keeping
Andrea.
us on track and making us sound good.
He's the best.
We're gonna miss you, buddy.
PR.
But hey, we can't get too sentimental just yet because we have a really cool discourse for all of you today.
We do.
All about the legacy of Jane Jacobs and how she, well, really changed how we think about cities.
Mm,
Now, just a reminder, you awesome listeners send us some incredible excerpts on Jacobs' book, The Death and Life of Great American Cities, and those are going to be our guide today.
they are. So let's all travel back in time for a second.
Ooh, time travel. I'm ready.
To the 1950s. Back then, cities were going through this huge modernist makeover.
Oh, yeah.
Like all those sleek skyscrapers, those massive infrastructure projects, and they were championed by these big names like Le Corbusier.
I've seen his designs, lots of concrete, lots of straight lines.
Exactly.
Very modern.
Very modern.
But I'm guessing those projects didn't always work out so well for the folks actually living in these cities, right?
Not always, no. Actually, a lot of these projects meant tearing down whole neighborhoods to make way for those big, grand visions.
Oh.
Yeah, a lot of upheaval and a lot of displacement, unfortunately. Take Robert Moses's work here in New York, for instance.
Right in our backyard.
Yeah, a perfect example of that.
And that's where Jane Jacobs comes in.
That's where she comes in, exactly, with her book, The Death and Life of Great American Cities. And she's basically saying, hey, wait a minute, this whole modernist thing, it's missing what cities are really about.
Yeah, tell him, Jane. But what exactly was it about this rationalist planning approach that she had a problem with? Because, I mean, on paper, it might sound kind of nice to have all this brand new development, right?
Yeah, I mean, new buildings can be nice, sure, but Jacobs was arguing that this top-down way of planning was completely ignoring this whole complex social ecosystem that really makes cities work, makes them thrive.
Right.
She was seeing these modernist projects as creating these kind of sterile spaces, these impersonal spaces that were really out of touch with what people who live in cities actually need.
Okay, so what did she propose instead? What was her recipe for a neighborhood that actually worked, that was thriving?
Well, she had these 4 key ingredients.
Okay, lay it on us.
First up, mixed-use development.
Ooh, I like the sound of that already.
Right. So instead of, separating everything into like strictly residential areas or commercial areas or industrial zones, she was all about blending them all together.
Oh, I see. So you're picturing, like, you step outside your apartment and bam, there's a coffee shop right there, a little bookstore, maybe even a park, all within walking distance. That sounds amazing, actually.
Exactly. That's what she was talking about.
That's my kind of place.
Yeah, she thought that kind of vibrant mix was super important to keep streets active, to keep them safe, all throughout the day.
Makes sense. Yeah.
It's not just about convenience, it's about fostering a real sense of community, too.
Absolutely. What else?
Okay, next up, short blocks and walkability.
Oh, yeah, nothing beats a good walk around the neighborhood.
Right.
Get some exercise, see what's going on, maybe bump into a neighbor.
Exactly.
I feel like short blocks really make those chance encounters more likely,
They do. Those frequent intersections, those pedestrian-friendly streets, they really encourage people to interact, to connect, and that creates a sense of safety and just makes the whole neighborhood feel more welcoming.
Yeah, totally. It's all connected.
It is.
All right, what's the next ingredient?
All right, this one might sound a little counterintuitive,
Okay.
but Jacobs was a big fan of older buildings.
Interesting. Here in New York, I feel like everyone's always after the shiny and new.
I hear you, but Jacobs saw a lot of value in preserving those older structures. She was arguing that, a mix of architectural styles and building ages, it adds to the character of a neighborhood.
It does, yeah.
And to its diversity. And those older buildings, they often offer more affordable options for housing and for businesses, which is really crucial, right, for a healthy urban ecosystem.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's about finding that balance, right, between kind of preserving the city's history and making space for what's new.
Exactly.
All right, so we've got our mixed-use spaces, our walkable streets, our historic buildings. What's the final ingredient?
The final ingredient is density.
Density. Okay, now I know some people might hear that and think a crowded subways and traffic jam.
I know, right.
But I have a feeling Jane Jacobs saw it a little differently.
You're right, she did. Jacobs was not afraid of density at all. In fact, she thought that a certain level of density was actually essential for supporting those vibrant, mixed-use neighborhoods we were just talking about.
Right.
It's like you need enough people to support those local businesses, to
Mm.
keep the public transit running, to make those cultural institutions thrive.
Yeah, like a critical mass, right?
Mm.
To make it all work.
Exactly.
But, Jacobs was skeptical of those top-down planning approaches, right?
Yeah.
So how did she envision actually making all of this happen?
Well, she was really all about this bottom-up, community-driven kind of development.
Okay.
She believed that the residents themselves, they had the most intimate understanding of their own neighborhoods, right?
Makes sense.
And that they should have a real voice in shaping their future.
Yeah, absolutely.
And her own activism, right here in New York City's Greenwich Village, that's a perfect example of that.
Oh, yeah, her fight against the Lower Manhattan Expressway.
Exactly.
So she wasn't just writing about this stuff. She was out there getting involved, fighting for her vision.
Yeah, she was on the front lines.
That's so cool.
Yeah, she rallied her neighbors, and they successfully opposed that massive project, which proves, that these grassroots movements, they can really make a difference.
They can. Inspiring stuff.
It is.
So, Andrea, where do you think Jacobs's ideas stand today? Are cities actually embracing her vision? Or are we still kind of stuck in that old modernist mindset?
I'd say her influence is definitely undeniable. You see it in movements like new urbanism, which is all about creating those walkable, mixed-use neighborhoods we were talking about, They draw heavily from Jacobs' ideas.
Oh, cool.
And more cities are realizing how important it is to have communities involved in the planning process.
That's great.
It is.
So she's left her mark.
Oh, for sure.
But it's a complicated picture, right?
It is.
Because we're always trying to find that balance between preserving what's already there and making room for what's new.
Absolutely. And, while some people criticize Jacobs for maybe focusing too much on preservation, sometimes at the expense of, building new housing that we need, her work has really sparked this super important conversation about how we create cities that truly work for everyone.
And that's a conversation we need to keep having.
We do.
For sure.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this season, all you urban explorers out there, let's remember Jane Jacobs' vision.
Yes.
Cities built on human connection, on diversity, on really respecting the needs of everyone who lives there.
She reminded us that cities aren't just made of concrete and steel. They're these living, breathing things shaped by the people who call them home.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
So as you all wander around your own cities, take a moment to, appreciate those busy sidewalks, those little corner cafes, those kind of quirky old buildings that give your neighborhood its unique character.
Yes.
Maybe even strike up a conversation with a neighbor, who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe you'll be inspired to make your own mark on your city.
Yeah. What a great thought to end on.
It is, right? And on that note, it's time for us to sign off. A huge thank you to Andro, our amazing producer, for such an incredible season.
You're the best, Andro.
And all you listeners out there, we'll be back with Season 2 before you know it, so stay tuned.
We'll see you then.
Bye, everyone.